Hello, everybody. Welcome to FnB TV. I'm here today with Sam Pillsbury of Sam Pillsbury Wine Company, and I want to talk a little bit about where he comes from and how he wound up here in Arizona.
People hear me talking and ask me where I come from, and I tell them New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi. I was actually born in Connecticut and grew up just outside of Boston, about halfway between Walden Pond and the Concord Bridge, so I'm kind of a wasp and a true Yankee. But it was a great place to grow up, and I really did evolve in many ways as an adult there. I went to high school and college there, started my film business in New Zealand, made movies there for quite some time before being seduced to Hollywood, where I started working more and more. And actually the reason I wound up in Arizona was I was brought to Phoenix by Universal to shoot a pilot for a TV series back in '93, and I not only met my now wife on that job. She was the location manager on that, but I kind of fell in love with Arizona too.
So Sam, tell us a little bit about how you went from being in the film industry to getting into the wine racket.
Well, there was never a transition, you know. It was just an evolving thing. Like back in about '85, I bought some land on an island called Waiheke Island, just off the coast of Auckland in New Zealand, which had it's a very similar parallel situation. It was a kind of a barren place, but it had a microclimate that looked like it could be good for making wine. The very similar thing happened here. I kind of started looking around Arizona to see where I thought might be a place that would be conducive to growing good quality wine grapes. One of the things that I was lucky to learn is living in New Zealand and watching New Zealand grape growers and winemakers plant classical grapes in unusual environments and winding up with having these spectacular results. I mean, some of the wines from Waiheke Island are just phenomenal. I mean, we've got Central Otago Pinot Noirs, we've got the Marlborough Sauvignon Blancs. So I knew you could do things like that. And when I looked at some of the qualities of where I have a vineyard now, which is Sulphur Springs Valley down in Cochise County, the conditions were right. The temperature profile was right. The altitude gave us all sorts of advantages, and it's turned out to be a brilliant, possibly the best place in this country to grow wine grapes.
What makes Arizona distinctive? Why is Arizona a place that you find would be great to grow grapes?
I think that if you live somewhere, that you should own it, you should belong to it. I'm a Kiwi growing wine grapes in Arizona. Why is that? Because I live in Arizona and I want to celebrate the uniqueness of this place. We're too hot to grow wine grapes in the Sonora Desert, but if you go up high, it cools down. Everybody knows that cool nights are really great for the ripening of wine grapes. You read on the back of California, wine bottles, the cool breeze from the Pacific, cools these grapes down in the evening, and it enhances the ripening process. That's a 15-degree swing. In the high desert, it's like 35, 40, 45 degrees. It's huge, And the quality of the wine that some of us are getting from grapes grown in Arizona is pretty phenomenal.
Let's talk briefly about the Rhone Red. Your decision to name it a Rhone Red, and for those of us in the industry, we know what a Rhone varietal means. But can you just briefly elaborate on the decision to name it that?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's a Rhone style wine. It's entirely made from grapes that my partner Al and I planted in 2000 down in Cochise County. It's a blend of Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and Petit Syrah, and it's one of the three reds that I make, and it's the lightest, most delicate red of them all. I think it's the best food wine that I make, and it's reflected in the way it goes through restaurants. This sells more in restaurants in Phoenix and in the whole of Arizona than any other wine that I make. It's bone dry, it's quite light and delicate, and it doesn't necessarily blow your head off on the first sip, but it's got a lot of fragrance and complexity in the nose. And it's spicy and warm, and it's just a great food wine. It'll go with a whole lot of wines. I called it Rhone Red because I was a big-time horse kid. I had a bunch of horses when I was a kid, and I know what a roan is. A lot of people don't. It's like a reddy brown horse. So we came up with Rhone Red, kind of a play on the word roan. And also the vineyard is planted on an old ranch called Spanish Bet Ranch, where they used to raise horses. And so I've got a little horse on my label, and just to create that idea of something playful, just celebrate that we're doing Rhone varieties here in the Southwest.
Tell me, you just opened up a tasting room, didn't you, in Cottonwood?
Old Town Cottonwood, yeah, just across the street from Stronghold. We're great buddies with those guys, and we found this beautiful old building, it's a bit like an art gallery, filled it full of art and wine and music, which is all things that give you pleasure and stimulate your senses and make you happier. and we love people to come. We love people to come up there and visit us. Old Town Cottonwood, that's outside of Sedona on the Verde Valley Wine Trail, and we also do the Old Town Scottsdale Farmers Market every Saturday morning.
What's in store for the future, Sam? What are your plans? Where do you see wine industry going, especially here in Arizona?
I think we've overcome this massive prejudice that I experienced when I first started selling Arizona wines here. It was really difficult to get them into any one place. It was pretty much took me a year to get into any new market, any specific restaurant. I would go in the first time and just be treated like the plague, you know. The second time I would go in, I was approached with with a little more civility and interest. The third time there was actually a definite increase, and the fourth time I would go in, I would usually space these out in 3-month intervals. So after about a year, the fourth time I would go in, they would say, "Okay, we'll try some of your wine." And some of those places, it's really worked. I mean. Got into Pizzeria Bianco back in 2000 or 2001.
Was he one of the first?
He was one of the first restaurants. So I targeted restaurants that seemed to be owner driven, where I thought you got more originality and integrity in the food, like Pizzeria Bianco, Quiescent, and of course FnB, which was a thrill to meet you and
Thanks,
a
Sam.
real thrill to see you have the guts to go out there and put an all Arizona wine list on your menu, and I think it's paid off for you big time.
Well, what I've always said, Sam, pride and giving each other a tip of the hat is where it all starts. Sometimes we reach out outside of our state to look for validation, and the fact of the matter is that we have wonderful, wonderful people doing wonderful things here in Arizona and for the state. So I'm very proud to be part of your cause, and cheers, mate. Thank you. Please don't stop making wine.
You know, I want to. I'm working on it. Okay, take care.
Hi, I'm Charlene Badman. I'm the chef of restaurant FnB in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm here today with David Anderson. He is the owner of Roastery of Cave Creek, and we're in Cave Creek, Arizona, visiting him, and he's going to tell me about some coffee. Dave?
Well, Charlene, I've been up here for about the last 12, 13 years roasting coffee. I had a retail business before, and I'd sold that a few years ago, and now I'm just roasting coffee, selling to fine restaurants like yours and others throughout the valley. I'm shipping coffee all over Arizona and actually all over the country. I've got some customers up in Seattle also.
Can you tell me about the different varieties of coffee that you have here?
Yeah, each of these is a different varietal from a different part of the world. And they're known for having different flavor characteristics, sort of like wine. The soil of which it's grown, the country, the origin.
And you have about 20 different varieties here.
Yeah, I keep something representing each of the growing regions: Central America, South America, Africa, Indonesia. For example, there's a fair trade organic there from Guatemala. It's known for having smoky, spicy undertones. It's a big thing right now with the third wave coffee roasters, where the single varietals are a big thing. They only want single varietal coffees, even their espressos, where I have not been a person who follows necessarily the trends of what the industry is doing. I'm more concerned about the coffee itself and the depth, the character, the complexity. So,
and single varietal means that there's just
one
type of coffee in that bag?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And the coffee that you serve. So I do keep a variety of single varietals and roast that for people. I also do a few blends too, because I think you can get some really special, complex coffees when you're blending different coffees from different growing regions. But the coffee here, I'll show you, this happens to be a African coffee from Kenya. Right. You can see it looks kind of like a seed, or almost like a pea, but it grows on cherries, and each one of the coffee cherries is going to have 2 of these beans in it.
They stay together actually through the entire cooking process?
Yes, they'll actually puff up, because the coffee, through the process, at around 370, 380 degrees, you'll get what's called first crack, where the beans actually pop open. It's not as loud as like popcorn, but it'll actually, the moisture expands and the coffee separates. So.
Okay. Wow, that's cool.
So I'll go ahead and fill some up, and we'll get ready and we'll roast a batch here.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to be doing is weighing it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the roasting process, the moisture in the coffee beans will actually go up the flue, so we'll put in probably 23, 24 pounds, and we're only going to get out about 20.
So this is your coffee roaster that we have here?
Yeah.
And this is just like a big convection oven?
Yes, the production coffee that I'm roasting, probably 700, 800 pounds a week right now. That's slowed down for summer, but this machine is built in Germany. A lot of the progressive coffee roasters have been around a long time, are roasting on the old ProBat. So
okay.
It'll do 25 pounds at a batch, and just about ready. I just got to get the temperature optimized and
Okay.
get ready to go here. As the temperature comes up now, I'm going to get it up to about 350 degrees, and the two temperatures are going to converge within about plus or minus 10 degrees at 350. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and put this in the hopper up here. Basically a large convection oven. You've got a rotating steel drum. It's gas fired. There's control over here that'll blow radiant heat on the drum as it rotates, and then there's convective heat that goes through. I can regulate the airflow that's going through there. And as the coffee's tumbling right now, it's up there where it's getting uniform heat consistency around it.
And when you drop the coffee down the hopper, does the temperature then lower?
Yes, you can see over here on this graph, the red graph is going to be the bean temperature. The machine comes with just this analog gauge.
Okay.
It's like driving a car at night without headlights. So for my days at Hughes Aircraft, I had enough mad scientists in me that I jerry-rigged it. I put a temperature probe down here in the beans. There's one up here in the drum. It goes into this data logger, which I've got interfaced into the laptop. So I know at any given moment throughout the roast process exactly what the coffee's doing. The roast time for the coffees are in the 14-15 minute range, depending on the degree of the darkness of the coffee.
And what about the caffeine?
The darker the roast, the less caffeine it has. The light roasts actually have more punch caffeine-wise than the dark roast coffees. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay. We'll take one look here.
Wow.
And you can see we've gone to a nice chestnut color.
Definitely.
You can even smell it too.
So you can hear the noise of the popping going on in the
Yeah,
machine.
that's called first crack. It's where the moisture in the coffee bean is actually expanding, heating up, and the bean pops open. So when we actually drop the batch, I'll be getting into just a good rolling second crack, and you'll hear it as it goes into the cooling bin. I'm going to go ahead and shut the flame down. Watch your fingers.
Okay.
Potatoes coming on. Here comes the fan. We're 440, 441, 442.
Wow, this just came out and it just smells amazing. It's like toast.
Yeah,
It smells
really
like breakfast.
nice, fragrant smell. I'm going to make a coffee drinker out of you, I promise.
Okay. So at this point, you're cooling it off.
Right, exactly. It drops into the cooling bin, and I want to stop the cooking or the roasting as quickly as possible. So I've got an auxiliary fan there, and it'll go from that 400 degrees down to room temperature in about 5 to 6 minutes.
Okay.
After the coffee's roasted, it will emit CO2 for about 36 to 48 hours. And you cannot brew it until it's completely degassed, because what will happen through that process, when the water's coming down from the brewer, those coffee grounds are actually going to repel the water, and it's going to have a thin...
That's from the CO2?
Yes, exactly.
But you bag it while that process is still happening.
Yeah,
It's
probably within about
the CO2
30 minutes
coming
out of the machine, it gets put in a sealed bag that's got a valve in it that prevents the oxygen from getting into the coffee, but lets the CO2 out.
Okay.
I'll show you one here. This is
the
a
finished
retail
product.
bag right now, and our two retail outlets where we're selling coffees at the Oakville Grocery and La Grande Orange. But
And that's the CO2?
There's the valve that I'm talking about. You've probably seen that at on any coffee at the grocery store. Yeah,
Okay.
you always want to buy coffee in small quantities, what you're going to use in about a week's time, and that's why FnB gets a fresh weekly coffee delivery once a week. So, okay, well here is the moment that I have been looking forward to for days, if not weeks, to watch you take a sip of coffee.
I'm going to taste your coffee.
Okay.
We just made it. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is really good. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having us.
Well, thank you so much for coming up, and thank you so much for allowing me to roast your coffee. FnB has become one of my favorite places to eat, and I dream about the rock shrimp and the lamb. So thank you for coming up and letting me be a part of FnB.
This is a great experience. I learned a lot today.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.